A dynasty can leave behind palaces, tombs, weapons, bronze. But the Shang left something more haunting. Questions. Carved into bone more than 3,000 years ago. Questions for the ancestors. Questions about war, rain, sickness, and power. When those bones were finally read again, they did more than reveal ancient writing. They allowed the Shang world to speak in its own voice. Before the Shang, China remembered the Xia. A first dynasty. A founding story. A beginning still difficult to prove. But the Shang is different. Here, early China begins to leave its own evidence. Oracle bones, buried bronze, ruined foundations, royal names, and words from their own time. Before they became history, oracle bones were medicine. For years, farmers near Anyang dug up fragments of bone and shell. Many were sold as dragon bones, crushed into powder, used in traditional remedies. Then, in 1899, a Qing scholar named Wang Yirong noticed something strange. The marks on the bones were not damaged. They were writing. Ancient writing. Medicine became history. Oracle bones were usually made from turtle shells or animal shoulder blades. They were used in divination. A Shang king, or a royal diviner, would ask a question. Small hollows were prepared on the back of the bone or shell. Then heat was applied. Cracks appeared on the surface. These cracks were read as signs of fortune or misfortune. But the cracks did not speak for themselves. To decide what they meant was an act of power. That power belonged to the king and his diviners. This made oracle bones more than ritual objects. They were records of royal decision-making. Sometimes the question was carved into the bone. Sometimes the interpretation was recorded. Sometimes even the final outcome was added later. The bones preserved what mattered to the Shang court. War, whether to fight and who should lead. Farming when rain would come and whether the harvest would succeed. And sacrifice, which ancestor to honor, when to perform the ritual, and how many offerings to prepare. To us, these questions may feel distant. But to the Shang kings, this was how power worked. The king stood at the center, asking, interpreting, and acting on the answer. To rule was not only to command the living, it was to control the conversation with the dead. The oracle bones matter because they gave historians something concrete. Names. On these bones, scholars found the names of Shang kings. These were not names written centuries later. They were carved by people living in the Shang world itself. Some of those names matched king lists preserved in later Chinese texts. That match did not prove every ancient story was true, but it showed that the Shang royal line remembered in tradition was based on something real. Behind those names was a world of power. It was cast in bronze. In the Shang world, bronze was more than metal. It was sacred. It held offerings for the ancestors. It marked who could stand before them. And whoever controlled the ritual controlled the power. Bronze made that power visible. But ritual power came at a cost. The Shang did not offer only wine, food, and animals. In some rituals, human beings were sacrificed. Captives taken in war could become offerings. To modernize, this feels brutal. But in the Shang world, blood, death, and power were closely connected. War brought captives. Captives fed ritual. Ritual honored the ancestors, and the ancestors protected the king's rule. This was the world of the late Shang. Brilliant in bronze, rich in ritual, and shadowed by blood. But this world would not last forever. Later tradition remembered the last Shang king, King Zhou, as cruel and unworthy. When the Zhou overthrew the Shang, they claimed more than victory. They claimed the Shang had lost the right to rule. They claimed heaven had turned away. From that claim, one of the most powerful ideas in Chinese history would rise: the mandate of heaven. The right to rule could be given, and it could be taken away. From around 1600 BCE, the Shang ruled for more than 5 centuries, but by 1046 BCE, its time had come to an end. The oracle bones proved that the Shang was real. But the fall of the Shang would give China something even larger. An idea that could justify rebellion, end dynasties, and shape Chinese history for more than 2,000 years. Next time, the rise of the Zhou and the right to rule is no longer permanent.